Weddings are supposed to be joyful, a celebration, a culmination of love, legacy, and family. But no one ever tells you how it feels to walk into your own son's wedding through the service door. I arrived 10 minutes early, not because I wanted to make an entrance, quite the opposite. I wanted to find a quiet spot, maybe say hello to a few distant relatives, and sit somewhere in the back. I wasn't there for attention. I just wanted to see my son Daniel get married. I wanted to witness that moment. That milestone I once prayed I'd live long enough to see. I wore a pale blue dress, the one I bought on clearance last winter, and saved just for this day. It wasn't glamorous, but it was soft, elegant me. I curled my hair. I even brought a small gift for his bride Emily. A family heirloom, nothing flashy, but meaningful. My mother gave it to me on my wedding day, and I wanted to pass it on. But when I reached the front entrance of the grand venue, a young woman in black approached me. She had a clipboard and an earpiece, and a tight smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Excuse me, ma'am, are you with catering?" I blinked. "No, I'm Daniel's mother." There was a pause, the kind that makes your stomach knot. She tapped something on her clipboard, then gave me another strange smile. "Oh, you're Ellen. Right. Could I ask you to use the service entrance on the left side of the building?" I stared at her. I beg your pardon." She leaned in, lowering her voice. "The front is for the formal procession. The couple asked that certain guests use the side entrance, just to help things flow more smoothly." "Certain guests?" I asked, my throat suddenly dry. "I'm sorry, that's all I was told. There wasn't a scene. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask to speak to anyone else. I just turned and walked." The gravel crunched under my shoes as I made my way around the building. I passed a dumpster. A pair of waitstaff, smoking behind the kitchen door, glanced at me, then looked away quickly. I reached the service entrance, pressed the buzzer, and waited for someone to let me in. When the door opened, it smelled like cooking oil and citrus cleanser. I stepped through a corridor lined with steel racks and stacks of champagne glasses, then emerged like an afterthought into the back of the reception hall. No one noticed me come in. No welcome, no hug, no name on the seating chart. I wandered for a moment, clutching my small velvet box in one hand and my purse in the other. Eventually, a kind server directed me to an unassigned seat near the kitchen doors. I sat down quietly, folding my hands in my lap, staring out at the sea of smiling faces, white linens, and floral centerpieces. At the far end of the room, I spotted Daniel, tall, handsome, glowing in his tux. Emily was beside him, radiant in her gown. Her mother was next to her, dabbing her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. No one looked in my direction, not even my son. And so I sat there invisible, just the woman who once carried him, raised him, and paid for his piano lessons by working double shifts at the diner. The woman who now wasn't even allowed to walk through the front door. I didn't touch the food on my plate. Not the salad, not the salmon, not even the tiny decorative cupcake with their initials printed on top in gold foil. I just sat there, still, waiting maybe for someone to notice. They didn't. As music filled the air and champagne flowed, I slipped away in my mind back to where it all started. Back to the day Daniel was born. He came into the world on a cold October morning. I remember gripping the sides of the hospital bed, my breath short, my heart full of both fear and hope. My husband James wasn't even in the room. He had taken a phone call halfway through labor and never came back. That should have told me everything I needed to know. He left us for good 3 months later. Said he wasn't made for family life. Said he needed freedom, whatever that meant. Freedom from diapers, from 3 a.m., feedings, from responsibility. He signed the divorce papers, and that was the last time Daniel ever saw him. From then on, it was just me and my boy. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment above a dry cleaner's. I worked at a diner during the day, cleaned offices at night. Sometimes I brought Daniel along with me. He'd sit in the corner with a coloring book while I vacuumed floors and emptied trash bins. I remember the night he got a fever of 103. I ran 4 blocks in the snow to the pharmacy with only $20 in my wallet. I bought medicine, Pedialyte, and crackers, and skipped dinner for the next 2 days to make up for it. But it was worth it. He was my whole world. And I didn't do it for applause. I never expected a trophy. I just wanted him to feel safe, loved, like he mattered. What I never expected was that one day I'd be the one who didn't. Daniel was a quiet kid, kind, smart. He had this little gap in his teeth when he was 7 and hated it. I told him it made his smile look like sunshine trying to peek through the clouds. He believed me. He always believed me. We were close, closer than most. It was me who sat front row at his school plays. Me who drove 6 hours for college visits. Me who took out a loan so he could go to the university he dreamed of without having to work 2 jobs like I did. When he met Emily, I was happy for him. She seemed sweet, kind, polished. Her parents were well off, and I'll admit I felt a little out of place the first time I met them, but I didn't think it mattered. Until slowly, things changed. Phone calls got shorter, holidays became optional. He missed Mother's Day because they had a wine tasting in Napa. He called, of course, always called. But you can feel when someone is dialing out of duty and not love. The wedding planning started, and I offered to help. He said everything was being handled by Emily's family and the planner. Just enjoy it, Mom, he told me. That's when I realized I wasn't included. I was invited. There's a difference. He didn't ask for my opinion on the venue. I didn't help pick the flowers or review the guest list. He never once mentioned the seating chart, and now I knew why. He didn't forget me. He deliberately left me out. Because in a room full of curated perfection, I didn't fit. I didn't wear designer heels. I didn't have the soft accent of old money or the practiced air of country club charm. I was just the woman who cleaned houses, who packed his lunch in secondhand Tupperware, who taped his college acceptance letter to the fridge like it was the Declaration of Independence. And now I was the woman sitting by the kitchen doors at his wedding, wondering where I went wrong. The toasts began. People stood and spoke of Daniel and Emily's journey, their compatibility, their bright future. Emily's mother gave a long, syrupy speech about how she always knew Emily would marry a man of worth. No one mentioned me. No one thanked me. Even Daniel, when he stood to speak, told stories about his mentors, his professors, his second family, who helped him during tough times. I wasn't one of them. I sat there clapping like a polite stranger, smiling like I hadn't once sold my wedding ring to pay for his textbooks. That night, I wondered, did he forget all the nights I stayed up sewing the seams in his football uniform? Did he forget the time I gave up a weekend shift money we needed just to drive him to prom? Did he forget who paid the deposit for his freshman dorm? Or worse, did he remember it all and choose to ignore it? I left the venue early. I slipped out the same way I came in through the service door, past the dumpster, past the clatter of dishes and the clinking of glass. The night air was cold, but not as cold as what I felt inside. As I walked toward my car, I clutched the small velvet box tighter than ever. The heirloom I'd brought for Emily stayed unopened, because there are some gifts people never deserve to receive. I thought I'd cry when I got home, but I didn't. I sat on the edge of the bed in my quiet little apartment shoes, still on dress wrinkled at the waist, staring at the untouched heirloom in my hands. I felt numb, like I'd walked through a fire, but hadn't realized I'd been burned. The next morning, I woke up to a single text from Daniel. Thanks for coming, Mom. Hope you got home okay. That was it. No mention of the service door, no apology for the seating, no acknowledgement of how invisible I'd been made to feel. And the worst part, I typed out a reply. I'm proud of you. Then deleted it. Then typed it again. Then deleted it again. And finally, said nothing. I didn't want to be petty. I didn't want to be bitter. I wanted to be strong, gracious, the mother I'd always tried to be. But grace has limits. Even steel bends if you heat it long enough. A week later, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Just my name written in Emily's looping handwriting. Inside was a note, Dear Ellen, thank you for attending our wedding. I know it meant a lot to Daniel. We've sent a copy of the group photos. I hope you find one you like. Warmly, Emily. There were 4 prints enclosed. In none of them was I visible. Literally. I was cropped out in one, blurred in the background of another, and completely missing in the rest. It was like the entire day had agreed I didn't exist. And for the first time in a long, long while, I got angry. Not loud, messy shout in the street angry. Not the kind that breaks things. No, this was quieter, heavier, the kind of anger that settles into your bones and asks how much more of yourself are you willing to erase for someone who won't even say your name in a room full of people. I carried that anger with me, like a stone in my pocket, small but solid. And I decided something that day I would show up. One last time, not as a ghost, but as myself. 2 weeks later, Emily's parents hosted a post-wedding garden brunch at their estate, something casual for extended family and close friends. I received the invite not from Daniel, but via a mass email from the planner. There was a line in the message, "Please dress elegantly casual. No gifts necessary. Just your presence is a blessing." I read it twice and almost laughed, so I picked a dress. Not expensive, but bright, floral. Something I hadn't worn in years because I'd convinced myself I was too plain for color. I curled my hair, put on lipstick, slipped the velvet heirloom box into my handbag just in case, and this time I walked through the front gate. No clipboard girl, no sideways glances. I looked people in the eye. I smiled, and I dared anyone to tell me I didn't belong. Inside the garden, everything was picture perfect. White tents, string lights, champagne flutes lined up like crystal soldiers. People clinked glasses and complimented centerpieces like they'd been rehearsing for it their whole lives. And there they were, Daniel and Emily, laughing with guests posing for photos. From a distance, you'd think they were royalty. Daniel saw me. His smile faltered for half a second, just long enough to register surprise. Then, he waved me over like I was a passing acquaintance. "Mom, you made it!" I walked up calmly, kissed his cheek. "I wouldn't miss it." Emily smiled too brightly. "You look so lovely! That dress is fun." I knew what that meant. Not expensive, not elegant, just fun. I nodded. "Thank you." She turned to greet someone else. I stood there in a crowd of clinking glasses and small talk, invisible once again, until someone tapped me on the shoulder. It was Mr. Pritchard, Daniel's high school history teacher. He beamed. "Ellen, my goodness, it's been years. I didn't know you'd be here." "Oh, I wasn't quite sure myself," I replied. He leaned in and whispered, "He always talked about you, you know. Said you were the strongest woman he ever met." I blinked, startled. "He did." He nodded. "I assumed you'd be sitting up front at the wedding, but I couldn't find you in the photos. That stone in my pocket?" It shifted. I smiled genuinely this time. "Thank you for saying that." One by one, a few more people, former neighbors, childhood friends, began drifting toward me, asking about Daniel's childhood, sharing memories, laughing about stories I thought everyone had forgotten. And then, it happened. A sudden hush spread across the garden. The MC announced, "Before we wrap, the groom would like to say a few words." Daniel stood under the arbor, holding a glass. I braced myself. He thanked guests, praised his in-laws, complimented his bride. And then his eyes found mine. There was a long pause. He cleared his throat. And finally he said, "There's one more person I'd like to thank. Someone who didn't walk through the main doors at our wedding. Someone I didn't honor the way I should have. Someone who gave me everything I ever needed, without asking for anything in return." The crowd turned, following his gaze. "Mom," he said, "please come stand with me." My feet didn't move at first, until I saw the tears in his eyes. Not embarrassment, not guilt, recognition. I walked up slowly, not through a service door, not from the sidelines, but straight down the center aisle of grass and white folding chairs, right to my son. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt seen. When I reached the front, Daniel took my hand. It felt like coming home and stepping onto a stage at the same time. I heard polite clapping from the crowd, a few awkward coughs. One or two people even stood up to clap, unsure whether they should. Emily's parents stayed seated. Daniel looked me in the eyes, those same eyes I once kissed goodnight after bad dreams. He raised his glass again and said, "This woman taught me about sacrifice." about loyalty, about real love. I didn't always appreciate it, but I see it now, and I want the world to know this is my mother. A collective murmur ran through the guests like a warm breeze. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I just nodded, smiled, and squeezed his hand. That moment was enough. Or, it should have been. But when I stepped down from the arbor, Emily was waiting. She was still smiling, but it was the kind of smile you wear when you've bitten your tongue too hard. "Daniel," she said sweetly, "can I talk to you for a moment?" They moved just out of earshot, but I didn't need to hear the words. Her posture said it all. She was upset, tight-shouldered, controlled. The crowd began to disperse. Some returned to mingling. Some came over to offer handshakes and congratulations. A woman with silver hair whispered to me, "That was beautiful, dear. He's lucky to have you." Lucky. That was new. When Daniel came back, his face was flushed. "She didn't like that, huh?" I asked gently. He gave a small, sad laugh. "No. She thinks it undermined the day, that it made it about you." I shrugged. "Well, I didn't ask for a mic." I came to sit quietly. "I know, it's not you, it's expectations, appearances." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I guess she feels like she has to defend her family's version of the story." "What version is that? That they gave me everything?" There it was. He looked at me, eyes rimmed red. "But they didn't. You did." It wasn't a grand apology, but it was honest, and that meant more. Still, I could see it. He was stuck between two women. One who raised him, one who now shared his future, and it was tearing him up. Later that evening, during dessert, Emily made a quiet move. She walked over, holding a small plate of chocolate tart, and placed it in front of me. "Thought you might like something sweet," she said softly. It felt like peace, not friendship, not approval, but peace. "Thank you," I said. "That's very kind." She hesitated. "I didn't mean for things to feel the way they did. The wedding, the door situation. It was just logistics." "Of course," I said. "I understand. Sometimes people get placed where they're easiest to ignore." Her face tightened. "I didn't mean to sting her, but truth has a way of doing that. I know I'm not the image you pictured when you thought about Daniel's mother," I continued. "But I was there for every scraped knee, every exam, every heartbreak. I didn't buy him a car or send him to Europe, but I was the one he called when his tire blew out in the rain. I was the one who sat in the ER until morning." Emily looked down at her heels. "And when your marriage hits its storms," I added gently, "I hope you'll remember it isn't the money or the venue that holds things together. It's the person who shows up anyway." To her credit, she didn't walk away. She nodded. "I guess I still have a lot to learn," she whispered. I smiled genuinely. "We all do." She reached into her purse, pulled something out, and handed it to me. It was the wedding photo, unedited. The one where I stood in the background, out of place, out of step, but still standing. "I told the photographer to send this to you. The full version. You should have it." I took it. And suddenly, the air around us felt lighter. But every moment of grace has a shadow. As I turned to leave the garden, I overheard Emily's mother whispering behind me, "I suppose next she'll want to give a toast at the baby shower." The words stung. She wasn't done yet, and I wasn't naive enough to think one heartfelt speech would erase years of quiet exclusion. But I also wasn't that woman who used the service door anymore. The next morning, Daniel called me. "I want you to come by for dinner this week," he said. "Just us, number everyone." That gave me pause. "Are you sure?" "Yeah. I want everyone to sit down. No more tension. No more pretending." I knew it wouldn't be easy. Emily's parents weren't going to welcome me with open arms. But Daniel had taken a stand. And he wasn't retreating from it. That was enough. Later that week, as I got ready, I looked in the mirror. Same woman, same face, same quiet strength. But something inside me had shifted. I wasn't the one trying to be accepted anymore. Now they were trying to catch up to the truth I had known all along, that motherhood is measured in presence, not perfection, in sacrifices unseen, in moments no one else shows up for. And I had shown up. Over and over again. Daniel's house smelled like garlic bread and rosemary chicken. The table was set for 6, the candles flickering like small promises. The evening air was soft, the kind of warmth that doesn't ask for attention, but comforts you just the same. I had almost backed out twice, but I came. Emily opened the door. This time her smile reached her eyes. "Hi, Ellen," she said, not Mrs. Not ma'am, not Daniel's mom. Just Ellen. Like someone she knew. Someone who belonged. Inside, her parents were already seated. They nodded politely when I walked in. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't ice. We were thawing slowly. Daniel stood and pulled out my chair. It was small, but I noticed. It was intentional. Dinner was polite at first. Chatter about work, the weather, something about their dog chewing through a couch cushion. I smiled and played along. But after dessert, something unexpected happened. Daniel tapped his glass and cleared his throat. "There's something I'd like to do," he said. He reached under the table and pulled out a small white box. I recognized it instantly. The heirloom. The one I'd brought to the wedding and taken back home unopened. Emily looked surprised. Her mother shifted in her seat. Daniel continued. "This should have been given weeks ago. But I wasn't ready. I didn't understand then." He handed the box to Emily. She opened it slowly. Inside was the vintage locket, simple gold, with tiny engraved initials that had belonged to my grandmother. Emily's hand went to her mouth. "I hope you'll wear it," I said gently. "Not because of its value, but because of what it represents." Emily looked at me. And this time, her eyes weren't just surprised, they were misty. "Thank you," she whispered. Daniel looked between us and smiled. "I want our kids to know where they came from. All of it. The whole story. And I want them to know the kind of strength that raised me." No one spoke for a moment. Even her parents for once didn't interrupt. And in that silence, something shifted. Not dramatically, not loudly, but deeply. I realized then, I wasn't waiting to be included anymore. I was already part of the foundation. Not because I demanded it, not because I forced my way in, but because I showed up. Even when I was told to use the service door. Even when I sat by the kitchen. Even when my name was left off the program. I kept showing up. Because love, real love, the kind that raises a child into a man, it doesn't need applause. It just needs to be present. As I left that night, Emily walked me to the door. She hugged me. Not stiffly, not out of obligation. A real hug. And then she said something I never expected to hear. "Next time you don't walk through any door except the front one." "You hear me?" I laughed. "I'll hold you to that." And I will. Because now, I know who I am. I'm the woman who raised a man good enough to face his own blind spots. I'm the woman who walked through a service door and came out stronger on the other side. And no matter what room I walk into next, I won't be invisible. Have you ever loved quietly in the background, waiting to be seen? Have you ever shown up? Even when the world told you to stand aside? Tell me your story in the comments. Let's make space for every kind of mother.